Okay, so good morning everyone, and thank you for taking the time to attend our webinar today. My name is Rowena Lamont and I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Innovative Content Management. To our existing customers, welcome and thank you for your ongoing support. I hope this presentation helps to drive further ROI from your mFiles solution. For those tuning into an ICM webinar for the first time, welcome, and I hope that our presentation leads to a conversation about how we can streamline document management for your team. For those of you unfamiliar with innovative content management, we help businesses drive efficiency for their information management using the mFiles platform, which we will introduce to you soon. This morning, we will explore some common pain points around managing controlled documents and show you that with the right tools, we can really make life easier for your team, especially your document administrators. I'd now like to introduce Matthew Lamont, our Managing Director and Head of Technical Services, to present this webinar.
Thanks, Rowena, much appreciated. Yeah, so welcome along everyone this morning to our existing customers. Again, great to see you. And for those tuning into one of our webinars for the first time, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what we've got in store. Over the past couple of years, controlled document management has really become a strategic focus for our business. We've noticed time and time again that this is something that a lot of businesses do struggle with, and we've been really enjoying working with our existing customers to make their life a lot easier. So I hope you find this presentation informative. I hope you find it beneficial and that you enjoy what we've got in store over the next 40 or so minutes. Just mention as well, this webinar is being recorded, so we will send out recording links once the session's finished later today. Okay, before I go too far, I would like to just get a feel for the audience and the kind of challenges that you're facing with your control documents at the moment. So I'm going to launch a Teams poll in a second, and I'm just going to ask in one or two words, in your own words, what are the main challenges that you're facing with your control documents at the moment? So when I launch this, Teams is going to give you a little form to fill in, and then it's going to generate a summary of those responses that we can just have a quick look at. And I'm really interested to see whether the challenges that you're facing match up with some of the conversations we've had with our customers and prospects over the past couple of years. So just bear with me while I manage the technology here. Hopefully everything's going to work properly for me. Okay. All right, this is just launching now, so just give it a second. Actually, I don't think this is working the way I intended, so I'm just going to cut my losses and move on. So I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry, I don't think it's come up correctly.
Yeah, sorry, apologies. I'm going to move on. Best intentions with technology, but sometimes it just doesn't play. All right, control documents. What are control documents? In our experience, this can mean quite a few different things depending on the sector that you work in. So what I'll do to start with is just spend a few minutes running through some of the common characteristics of control documents, just to set the scene. Okay, generally speaking, control documents are documents that are critical to our staff to help them do their work safely and efficiently. These sorts of documents are generally available to most, if not all, staff, but they shouldn't be editable by everyone. That's really important. These documents should be going through a formal process of review and approval before they are published out to our staff. And typically controlled documents are stored very securely with quite strict access controls applied to prevent unauthorized modification. So of course, common examples of controlled documents are going to include SOPs, standard operating procedures, policy documents, manuals, work instructions, safety data sheets, SDS. And of course, depending on the sector that you work in, there might be other categories that you work with. But in our experience, these tend to be the most common categories that we come across. Now, really importantly, if these documents are out of date, or if staff aren't aware of them or don't follow them correctly, that can have quite significant consequences for our businesses. So that's something we're going to talk about more in depth a little later in this presentation. Okay, so now that we've got an understanding of what a control document is, I'm going to talk about what purpose they serve. Now, some control documents help us to guard against workplace accidents. So they set out safe ways of working and operating equipment so that people don't get injured in the workplace. So there is a protection against litigation angle, but it's also about just doing the right thing by our team to make sure that they are not put in harm's way while they're in the workplace. Then we've got documents like work instructions, and these help our staff to perform work in the most efficient way. So they help staff to do things in a standard procedure so they don't waste time and they don't use more materials than would be necessary to produce a product or service. So we're not wasting resources that cost money. Importantly, for some businesses, control documents really underpin key certifications like ISO 9001, which of course relates to quality management. So having certifications like ISO 9001 can drive competitive advantage because that shows an overall organization-wide commitment to continuous improvement. But it can also open up the possibility of gaining access to lucrative government and big private sector contracts as well, where ISO 9001 might be a prerequisite for those contracts. So for some businesses, ISO 9001 is quite important. And losing that certification can be quite damaging for those businesses as well if they don't have really good controlled document management in place. And then, of course, we've got regulatory compliance. We've got businesses out there that have to comply with certain regulations that apply to their sector. So, for example, we've worked with a couple of registered training organisations, and they have quite widely, they have policy documents in place to guide their assessment processes. And that's to ensure that they comply with their obligations under the Australian Qualifications Framework, which is the main set of regulations that governs that sector. So there is a good case for managing our controlled documents and doing it really well. But in our experience, a lot of organisations really struggle with their controlled documents. And in our experience, there are quite a number of very limited pain points that come up time and time again. And at the top of the list by a long way, and this is what I was expecting to see in my poll before that didn't quite work, is version control. So this image here on my slide, that's quite typical of what a lot of businesses struggle with. You've got multiple versions of the same document, and they've got ambiguous file names. So you can see here, we've got 3 different versions of version 3. That's just a recipe for confusion. Our staff don't know which is the latest approved version they need to work from. The main cause of this problem, especially when you're working in a traditional document repository like SharePoint and network drives, is that when you need to retain earlier versions of a controlled document, it is often need to be kept as a separate file. So that's what gives rise to multiple copies of the same document in our repository. Then you've got manual file naming. So you can see there one of those documents is labeled do not use. So we've got the ability there for our administrators to manually relabel the document. That also contributes to version chaos. So that's something that really affects a lot of businesses. Other common challenges that we see are manual document review and approval processes. This causes a lot of problem, especially when you're using email to send documents around the business for internal review, because it gives rise to problems like, did you get my email with the draft policy that I sent to you for review? No, I didn't. I didn't get that email. So when you're relying on email as well to track approvals and track that decision-making process, we know how easy it is to misplace an email. That can upset audit trails of what's happened to a document, who has approved it, who's been working on it. We then have really tedious manual tasks as well that need to be done with our controlled documents. So things like keeping the file name up to date. The version number is really important. Often that has to be done manually. Removing superseded versions from circulation. That is a lot of manual work typically for administrators, and it is prone to error. And then, of course, when a new or updated version of a document comes out, we need to make sure our staff are aware of that. And that's where a lot of solutions don't cater for that requirement at all, or they treat it simply as an afterthought. So all of these conditions that I'm talking about add up to create business risk. Okay, we've got risk of injury. We've got the risk of wasted resources and wasting money. we've got the potential risk of not passing an audit. And what we have found is that the cost of accepting those risks far outweighs the cost of a good system for managing your controlled documents. So I want to delve into some of these consequences a little bit more deeply. This screenshot here is from the Australian Institute of Health and Safety, and what they're doing here is they're summarising data from Safe Work Australia. They are reporting that WHS non-compliance is on the rise. So in that article there, they report that between 2020 and 2024, the average penalty for WHS non-compliance was just over $122,000. If that sort of penalty is levied on a small business, that can obviously be crippling for that business. Along the way here at Innovative Content Management, we hear all sorts of stories on a regular basis of people struggling with their controlled documents. So I just want to share a couple of anecdotes that we've heard along the way that sort of paint a further picture about the consequences of not having good controlled document management processes in place. First and foremost, the one that sticks out in my mind is we had a prospect about 12 months ago who came to us when one of their very expensive earth-moving pieces of equipment was destroyed. The story behind that was that the documentation that was being provided to the mechanics on the workshop floor was out of date. And the torque specifications had changed on the oil filter for their bulldozers. And the mechanic that was working on the bulldozers wasn't aware of that because their documentation wasn't up to date. What happened in this instance was the machine went in for a service, oil was changed, a new filter was put on. It wasn't tightened to the correct torque specifications. When the machine went back into service, the oil filter came loose and started leaking oil onto the engine block. It caught fire, and that was the end of the machine. It couldn't be saved. It was burned to the ground. It got worse, though, for this company, because when the insurance company got involved, they found out about the document management processes, and they said, this cannot happen again. They said, you need to go and sort out your document management processes and make sure the people on the workshop floor have up-to-date information all the time, or we might refuse you cover. So I thought that was quite telling, that you can have insurance refused or find it hard to get cover down the track if the processes are not there and in place. We have a customer that used to have audits completed for their ISO accreditation. It used to take them multiple days to get prepared for that and to go through the audit process when the auditor was on site. Documents were stored in a folder-based system. They were stored across multiple repositories. It was really, really hard to track down the information, including the documents and the audit trails when it came to audit time. Our platform has sped that up significantly to the point where the auditors really love the platform that we're working with. Another example that stands out is policy documents at a not-for-profit that we work with sometimes. That was being released, those documents were being released to staff without management committee approval. So that was causing problems for their staff when that check and balance wasn't being built into their processes for releasing controlled documents out to the broader staff. Now, having said all of this, most businesses do try to do the right thing with their controlled documents. But most common what we see is people struggling with the wrong tools. SharePoint comes to mind because it's a very, very popular choice. It is included in Microsoft subscriptions, of course. That's why people know about it. They've got access to it quite readily. And it is a great platform for storing content. But for compliance use cases, it does have quite serious limitations. A couple of limitations of SharePoint that I'll point out here. First of all, you need to manually turn on the document history tracking. Okay, so that's got to be, the administrators have to remember to do that when a document is brought into circulation. If you don't remember to turn that on in SharePoint, you don't have the full audit history of the document throughout its life cycle. Down the bottom there, require documents to be checked out before they can be edited. If that's not turned on in SharePoint, you can potentially have two people editing a document over the top of each other. Again, that can undermine the version history integrity of the documents that you're working with. Another example is that SharePoint has this feature here where you are able to delete all versions of a document, which means that you can potentially inadvertently delete previous versions of a document and further upset your audit trail. So with everything I've spoken about so far, it raises a number of questions. So I'm just going to put these hypotheticals to you. So what if we could only show the latest approved version of a controlled document to our users? That would make life a lot easier. Even better, what if we could take email out of the equation and automate the review and approval process that a document has to go through before it gets published out to staff? That's quite doable. What if we could have a tamper-proof record of all the document changes? What if it was fail-safe? It didn't need to be turned on manually. What if we could publish a new version of a document and supersede the previous one automatically? I know that's something that document administrators struggle with, is making sure that that previous copy is out of the way where the end users can't see it. And then to top it off, when a new or updated document is published, what if we could send out a training assignment to our staff to say, look, this document's been published. We need you to sign off that you're aware of the document and that you have read it. So the great news with all these questions I've just posed is that we can achieve all of those use cases I've just spoken about using the M-Files platform. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with M-Files, this is a market-leading content management platform that is built specifically with compliance in mind. And here at Innovative Content Management, we're really proud to be one of a small number of authorized M-Files partners in Australia. M-Files does enjoy quite strong brand awareness in the US and Europe, and its brand awareness is starting to grow here in the Asia Pacific region. As we're about to look at when I go into my demonstration, M-Files adopts a different approach to information management than a lot of other platforms. Rather than storing information in folders and managing our documents through folder structures, we use metadata to manage our information. What that does is that enables us to find our information a lot more quickly, but it also enables us to drive a wider range of automation to help make that process a lot easier with managing our controlled documents. The great thing about M-Files is that it's hugely versatile. It can manage controlled documents very, very well, but we can also develop it for a wide range of use cases like accounts payable, project management, records management, and external collaboration. I just want to mention really quickly as well that in July of this year, M-Files and Microsoft announced a new partnership that effectively positions M-Files as a strategic extension of Microsoft 365. Microsoft itself does acknowledge that SharePoint does have limitations for managing our version controlled documents. And what this partnership does is it goes a long way to bridging that gap. The partnership delivers a wide range of benefits, but the main benefit that we can get now is that Microsoft has granted M-Files backend access to the 365 environment. So that means for new cloud-based deployments of M-Files, we can actually store and manage content, M-Files content, within Microsoft 365. So it's very, very secure, has direct access to Microsoft tools like Copilot, co-authoring, Microsoft Purview as well. And this is also really big news because no other document management platform on the market has this level of endorsement from Microsoft. So if you'd like to know more about that partnership, you can scan the QR code there on that slide, or I believe Rowena might be putting a link into the chat. I've just seen that go in, so you can click on that at your convenience. Okay, I'm just going to leave my presentation here and we're going to open up M-Files and have a look at a few different processes here. We're going to go through finding the latest approved version and see how easy that is for a regular end user. We'll look at how the review and approval process can be streamlined right through to the publishing of the document. And then we're going to look at how we can make our staff aware of the latest approved version that's been updated or newly published. So if you just bear with me for a couple of seconds, I'm just going to rearrange my screen and I'll be straight back. Okay, just putting my screen back up now. Rowena, just let me know if that's not coming through.
No, it's fine.
All right,
We
what
can
I'm
see
going to...
it.
Great, thank you. All right, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give a demonstration of controlled document management in M-Files. I'm going to be focusing on about half a dozen key value drivers of this solution. I will preface this with saying that the configuration of controlled document management in M-Files is very, very malleable. We can set it up in a lot of different ways. So the way that I'm presenting here today is just one of many, many different ways we can set this up. First things first. When we use M-Files for managing our controlled documents, the end users only ever see the latest approved version. So this eliminates version confusion and ensures that the staff only ever work from that latest version that should be in circulation. So I'm just going to show you how quick and easy this is. I'm logged in here as a regular end user, which means I'm not an administrator, and I'm looking for a particular SOP document to do with the management of training resources. Here I've got what's called a dynamic view, and this is a shortcut through to all of the latest approved versions of the controlled documents for my business. If I go into SOP, there is the document that I'm looking for. Okay, the management of training facilities and resources. That was the document I'm looking for. You can see here we're at version 2.1 for this document. So that means that there is going to be previous iterations of that document around somewhere in my system. But the way that M-Files is set up is that the end users cannot see those previous versions. It's very, very secure. So I'm just going to do a quick demonstration to show you how watertight this is. If we do a quick keyword search here, this is another advantage of M-Files, is the Google style search for your content. All right, so I'm just going to run this search. So that has searched my entire repository that this particular user has access to. You can see there we've got version 2.1 of the SOP I was just looking at, and they are not able to see any previous versions of that document whatsoever. So this means that your team never has to worry again about working from an outdated version of the document. Now, another advantage of using M-Files for your controlled documents is that your regular users and your administrators can work with documents anywhere using the mobile app. So M-Files is accessible not only on a desktop application, but also via mobile. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to play a really short video clip just to show you what the mobile interface looks like for a regular end user. So again, just bear with me. Just going to enable the sound so you can hear the sound for this video. Okay, this goes for about 1 minute 30, so I'll talk to you as soon as this is over. Okay, I'll leave that video there and I'll bring my demonstration back up. So the great thing about that mobile access is that the staff don't need to be at their computer with M-Files installed to access their critical documents. We can have staff on the workshop floor accessing their work instructions on a tablet, or you can have staff working remotely, and they could potentially access M-Files documents on the web client or on their phone. The great thing about M-Files as well is we can actually connect a M-Files vault to SharePoint. So if your staff are used to accessing their controlled documents through SharePoint, we can still manage and control those documents within the M-Files application so that we've got all the benefits of the access permissions there and the streamlined workflows, but they can still see these documents here through a SharePoint page as well. So we do have that flexibility, which is great. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that depending on what platform of M-Files is selected, we can even use Microsoft Copilot to interrogate our controlled document library. I was having an interesting conversation with someone last week, and it turns out that BHP, even though they're not using M-Files, they are actually using Copilot to interrogate their controlled document library. So that means that when one of their workers turns up to a site, they can pull out Copilot and say, look, I'm at such and such a site. What do I need to know? What policy or SOP documents apply to me while I'm at this site? So there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, one of the greatest things about using M-Files for controlled document management is that M-Files offers parallel working and published copies of our controlled documents. So the great thing about this is that it eliminates version confusion, and it allows the administrators to work on changes to a document without disrupting what the end users actually see at their end. Okay, we know that's a very common problem. Very common challenge we hear about is administrators needing to make those changes and work on documents like the SOPs and policies, but without disrupting what the end users see at their end. So in this solution, M-Files lets the administrators have their own editable working copy, while the end users have their own parallel published copy of the latest approved version at all times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this works here. I'm just going to make sure I'm logged into the right person. Okay, so now I'm logged in as someone different here. I'm actually working as an administrator here in this solution. You can see here we've got a few more views compared to a regular end user. So we've got the ability to see controlled documents where I am the document owner, or we can see all of the working copies. So this is administrators only. I'm going to go into here where I'm the document owner. And I'm going to work on this document here, the invoicing procedure document. So this is an SOP document. You can see at the moment here we're at version 1.3. So there's been a couple of minor versions before this particular version went into circulation. Down in the workflow state here, we can see that that document is currently marked effective, which means that there is an approved published version of this document currently in service. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make a minor change to this document. We're going to create a minor version update, and we're going to convert this to version 1.4. And I'll take you through the review and approval process and show you how easy this is and how much automation M-Files builds in to make this really simple. Okay, first of all, here we can see that the document is locked. Okay, no one can edit this document at the moment. This is another check and balance here from an audit perspective. So what I'll do is I'm going to change the workflow state to create a new minor version. That is going to change the workflow state on the document and actually open it up for editing by myself as the logged in document owner. So we'll go create new minor version, save that. All right, if we look at the permissions now, I'm logged in as Bill, and Bill has edit rights to the document now, whereas everyone else on the team, they still have only got read-only access. So all these people here, they're all administrators. I don't include my regular end users here. So what we will do is we will check the document out for editing. So when you check a document out in M-Files, that prevents someone else from editing concurrently, unless you specifically invite them for co-authoring. Okay, I'm just going to make a very minor change here to section 1. So I'm just going to put the word legislation in here. Right, so just a very minor change here. So we'll save our change, we'll check the document back in. Now, what I'm going to do here is down the bottom of this metadata, I've got a controlled document revision history property that I can update. So this lets me keep track of the edits that are being made to the document over time. So I'm going to say v1.4 minor edit to section 1. And what mfiles is going to do is it's actually going to stamp this information into the document so that the metadata about the revision changes is following the document around. Also worth noting there, you can see that the working copy, when I created the new minor version, that was automatically updated there to version 1.4 for me. So we'll go save. Okay, what we'll do now is we will send the document for internal review, and that way the reviewer can look at the document, make sure everything is okay before they approve it for publication out to our staff. Before I do that, I'm just going to show you one thing quickly. So we've got another view here, the latest approved version. So if we hop in here, SOP, there is the invoicing procedure version 1.3. When I run this document through the approval process, this is going to automatically update that to version 1.4, and it's going to supersede version 1.3 out of circulation for me and do that automatically. So let's send this document for approval. Again, another workflow state change. And the document has now gone off to this person here, the internal reviewer, which is Barbara. So she has received a notification saying you have got a document that you need to review in mfiles. Now I'm lucky enough here to be able to log in as Barbara as well. Now if we have a look up here in you can see this red light indicator here. We've got a couple of new assignments in mfiles. And there is that document there that's been sent to the reviewer. And Barbara's been given very clear instructions from the workflow about what she needs to do. She can see a preview of the document as well. Now on that preview mode as well, if she wants to provide feedback and reject the document at this point, we can actually use annotation tools here to put highlighting and strike through and comment boxes on the document. And that way that will help the document owner make further revisions before it comes back for further review. Now, Barbara wants to know how this document has changed from the previous version that was in service. So we can easily do that with mfiles because it does integrate directly with Microsoft 365 desktop applications. So I've opened the document here, and you can see at the top that when you install a software, you've got an mfiles menu up the top in the ribbon. So we can click on this compare button here. And this is going to give me access to all the previous versions of the document. Okay, so I'll talk about this more later, but every time the document content or metadata is changed, mfiles logs a new version of the document. So more about that later. I want to compare this document with the last time it was marked effective and released to our staff, just to see what's changed. So let's click on this version here. Click on OK. So there we have in the middle pane here, we've got a track changes account of the differences between those two versions. So we can see there, of course, the version number has changed, and we've made a very minor change here to section 1. Over on the right-hand side here up the top is the earlier version of the document, so you can scroll through and make direct comparisons to what the documents look like there without tracked changes. So the reviewer here, she's happy with the way the document looks, and we are going to close that document down. What we'll do now is we're going to approve that document. Pardon me. So Barbara just simply has to click on approve the controlled document, click save. So mfiles in the background now is superseding version 1.3 and replacing it with version 1.4. It takes about 30 seconds to run while it does all this in the background. But this is doing a lot of work that an administrator would ordinarily have to do manually. So it's a really good way to save time. Okay, so there we are. We're at version 1.4. We're back at effective in the workflow state. Let's go and have a look at what the end user can see. So we'll go back to Paul, who's our regular end user. Go into the latest approved version, SOP. there is version 1.4 with our little change there, Australian financial legislation. So the administrator has not had to do anything there to remove that previous version from service. So a few things to emphasize here. With this solution, the document review and approval process is significantly quicker. There's no emailing documents back and forth for approval. You're not relying on email chains as a record of decisions and approvals, and there's a tamper-proof record in mFiles of that process. We've automated the document publishing. So again, only the latest approved version is visible to our staff, and the administrators are free to work on the document in the background without disrupting what our end users see. Okay, so I've mentioned this a couple of times now that this solution saves the administrators significant time on not having to do manual tasks. So if I go back to Bill's login here, so he's the document owner for this one here. File naming, mFiles does that automatically. So what it does is it puts together pieces of metadata from the document to give us a file name. It also updates dynamically. So if the document is in drafting, or if it's being sent for review, or if it's being approved, that workflow state is automatically updated. I'm just going to refresh this page here because that document is actually set to effective now that we've approved it. mFiles also can set review dates automatically for us. Okay, so we can say this document is due for review on a 1 year or a 2 year cycle. mFiles can calculate a review date and notify the document owner that the document is then due for review. Okay. So something I touched on before was the version history of these documents. So the way that mFiles operates is that it enables the businesses to be audit ready all the time because mFiles is automatically tracking version changes and the decision-making history, and that version tracking cannot be turned off. So there's no risk of missing when key changes were made. So we'll just have a look at this in a bit more detail here. So we've got our invoicing procedure document here, the working copy. If I click on this little button here, this is the activity feed for the document. So every time a change is made to the metadata or to the document contents, that is logged there in the activity feed in detail. So it shows that, here we go, on the 12th of November 25, Barbara Plant made an edit to the document, and none of this information can be edited. So it's really, really tamper-proof. The other great thing here as well is I can open up a detailed version history. So we looked at this briefly before. You can see there that document is up to version 40, okay? Even though it's only at controlled version 1.4. That's a reflection of every time the metadata or the content is changed, mFiles is tracking that automatically, but we're not creating another copy of the document. It just gets layered one upon another on the same object. Okay, so we're not causing version confusion in that way. Another really useful feature here for an audit perspective that saves a lot of time is if an auditor says to you, look, I want to see all of the latest versions of your current SOP documents, we can go into this section here for the latest approved version, and I can click on export, and we can export all of those files and their metadata to a local location to give to our auditors. I'm just going to do this really quickly. Okay, so here we have a spreadsheet of all of the metadata from our documents. So that's got a full account there of who's approved the document, when it was approved on, and when it's due for. And also in there is a folder full of documents that we can give over to our auditors. Okay, so the last thing I'll talk about this morning is reducing business risk. Okay, so mFiles is really good at reducing business risk by ensuring that the staff are automatically made aware of new and updated standard operating procedures and any other controlled documents. So this is where a lot of other solutions fall short. If a new or updated document is published and there's no fail-safe method of knowing about it, it can really open up some loopholes there. So if I go back to my regular user here, Paul, he has got some notifications here. So after we released that invoicing SOP, Paul has actually received a workflow assignment from mFiles saying that this document has been updated. We need you to have a look at it and sign off down here that you've read and understood that document. If we expand that assignment here, he's got a quick link through to the document, so it's very easily accessible. He can have a look through and say, yep, that's all good. Go back to the assignment and click off, yes, I have read and understood that document. So we can click on save. We refresh that, now it's gone. If we go back to our administrator view, we can see all of the training records across our business. So if I go in here to completed training records for Paul, and let's have a look. Invoicing procedure 1.4, that was completed today at 11:41 a.m. Okay, the administrators as well can see any assignments that are overdue and ones that just haven't been completed yet but aren't yet overdue. So whether you've got 10 employees or 1,000 employees, mFiles really keeps everyone informed and held to account when that new or updated document is published. And auditors really love being able to see that clear record of who was trained on a document and when, so that if the question is asked, well, how do you know that the people have read this document? You can say, there's my record there. Okay, I'm going to leave my demo here and just wrap up the presentation. So again, just a bit of screen swapping here. Hey, all right, my screen's coming back up. Okay, so when we talk about using mFiles for managing controlled documents, it's really not just another piece of software. It really is a strategic business investment. It's a clear investment in saving time, about reducing risk, and having a really reliable compliance foundation there that scales up as your business grows. Because every hour that your admin team spends on chasing those approvals, if you get an adverse audit finding, if you've got an outdated SOP in circulation, there's costs, there's risk there. Whereas mFiles, as we've seen, can really help with removing those inefficiencies. And as I've mentioned before, the great thing about mFiles is that it's not just about solving one problem. We can expand the system out to cater for a wide range of other use cases like managing your quality records, WHS compliance, HR documents, and a whole lot more, which really drives the ROI. Okay, I'm conscious that we've got a mix here of existing customers and prospective customers in the room this morning, and our existing customers are probably wondering how they can get this set up on their mFiles. Basically, if what you've seen this morning is of interest, please get in touch with us and we'll have a conversation about a strategy that works for you. At its most basic level, the automatic publishing that we've seen this morning, that requires the mFiles advanced workflow and version control module, which we can add to your license at quite a modest cost to get all these benefits. So please feel free to get in touch. Always happy to book a no-cost consultation and look at what works for your team. For those who are yet to embark on a journey with mFiles, we'd love to have you come along with us. We'd love to chat about how we can streamline your business processes with mFiles. We do fully customized solutions, but we've also recently launched a pre-configured controlled document solution called Controlled Docs Plus. And the great thing about this solution is that the system is already built, ready to go, which means there are no upfront development costs to get access to that solution. It is based on our experience working with customers across a wide range of verticals and discussions we've had with people like ISO auditors. So it really is a good quality solution that we can have rolled out in as little as 2 to 3 weeks. It does include all of the administrator and end user training resources, so we really can deploy that solution very, very quickly. I think Rowena's just put a link into the chat there, so if you're interested about that solution, have a look at our website. Again, the QR code there is available if you want to snap that on your phone. So I'll leave that there for just a couple of seconds. But that's it for the presentation this morning. So thank you very much for coming along. Appreciate your time, and we're happy to take any questions that people might have. Thank you.
Yes, we've got a question from Pete, but it's in relation to his current system. So thank you, Pete. We love that our clients are coming to our webinars. And I think the best way for us to help you with that is to talk to you directly. So we might give you a call. And Pete has another question. Is it possible to have a review date property in a metadata panel that will automatically flag an email to whoever is responsible for the document to review the document and update as required? And you're right. Yes. And yes. And yes. So Matt did show it, and it's absolutely possible to trigger a notification to an admin user to look at the document when it needs to be updated.
Absolutely, and you don't need the solution that we've shown here this morning to do that. That's an out-of-the-box M-Files capability as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just with controlled documents. That can be any type of document that needs to be reviewed, can be triggered to give a notification when it needs to be looked at again. Are there any other questions?
If you do have questions as well, everyone, and don't want to type them into the chat here, just feel free to drop us a line. All of our contact details are up on our website here as well. You can scan that QR code and book a consultation with us as well. Always very, very happy to chat.
And I've just put a link into the chat that links to our Contact Us page on our website as well.
I can just see one or two questions being typed, so I'll just wait here for a second.
Also, if you prefer to call and talk to one of us, our phone number is on the screen, 1300 623 571. Got Brandon typing. I've scared him off. Yes, Brandon, so your question, can different policies have different permissions? Absolutely. Everything can be tailored completely to each individual document. I can get Matt to elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the metadata framework that we work with in M-Files, if you categorize a document as a HR policy or an operational policy or a administration policy, you can drive permissions automatically based on the type of document that it is or any other characteristic of a document. So you do have a lot more flexibility in the way that you can control access to your documents in M-Files compared to a lot of other platforms that are out there on the market. So definitely something that can be done. All right, we can hang here for 1 or 2 more minutes if there's any other questions, but if there's no more questions, feel free to enjoy your day.
Yeah, but no question is a bad question. So
just see Brandon typing again. Okay, we mentioned Copilot. Can M-Files AI help as well? Yeah, absolutely. So we've got the ability to connect Copilot to our M-Files content these days, which is great. But M-Files also comes built in with generative AI on the top level platform called INO. And INO does a few different things. At its most basic level, it enables people to ask questions about a document. So if you've got a really lengthy contract, for example, and you want to know if there's a penalty clause within that document, rather than scanning it manually yourself, you can simply ask, I know, does this contract have a penalty clause? And it will extract that information for you. The other thing that it does is that it can extract metadata from documents quite readily. So what we can do is we can put documents like accounts payable invoices through M-Files, and we can extract things like the invoice number, the due date, the GST amount, any line items that you need to facilitate workflow approvals. And it does that much quicker and easier than manually keying in that data to facilitate your review and approvals. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions, so we might leave it there. Again, thank you everyone for coming along. Appreciate your time to come along and listen to us.
Yes, thank
you. If you feel like we can be of help, please get in touch.
Yep, and enjoy your day.
Thanks everyone.